But in a situation where you find that they look like the same,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
but I have said that.
All right, if you are just joining us, this is Daybreak on Trust Television. Let's review some of the papers this morning, starting with the Daily Trust newspaper. Right on page 19, you'd find FIRS to go after tax evaders in maritime aviation sectors. And on page 39 of the Daily Trust newspaper, you'd find ICPC recovers 241 houses from public servant. Oh, wow.
That's quite commendable.
Right, indeed. Is it, what many will ask, is this because of the declaration of assets that people do, that they were able to track this houses?
Some could be from, maybe proceeds of corruption, and then maybe the ICPC on suspicion, decided to swing into action, begin to investigate, and then it was found out that these were proceeds of corruption, and so I'm sure they would go to the court to seek for forfeiture of, assets, and I would believe that this is where this is coming from. Okay. So, for details, you can pick a copy of the Daily Trust newspaper. You'll find that story on page 39.
Right. Still on the Daily Trust newspaper, on page 5, you'd find, despite poor funding, Buhari creates 30 more tertiary institutions. And a writer is saying polytechnics becoming mere constituency projects. That's according to ASUP. Experts want existing institutions revamped. And you'll also find presidency, ministry, mom. And on page 7 of the Daily Trust newspaper, hundreds flee homes as ISWAP attacks Borno town again. That's quite a sad story, isn't it? And you'll find details of that story on page 7 of the Daily Trust newspaper. And on page 20, Ganduje proposes 196.3 billion budget for 2022. Troops kill terrorists making explosives from fertilizers. That's on page 4 of the Daily Trust newspaper. You'd also see a pictorial there where the impeached Speaker of the Plateau State House of Assembly, Honorable Abok, holding a parallel plenary.
Very interesting, really, if you look at that. We'll be looking at that later on the program, but it's interesting. What they have here, they have the maize, and it's not necessarily the complex of their state assembly, but they have decided that, look, we could still hold plenary, somewhere, as long as we have the maize. And it's surprising, the turn of events. The allegedly impeached speaker insists that he cannot be impeached, and so he stands to remain the speaker because he, as far as is concerned, the number of people that impeached him is not up to the quorum agreed in the Constitution. So, we'll see how all of that pan out. But again, it brings you to the whole conversation about the political drama that we see. This is not the first of its kind. We've seen this in several other states, and so sometimes politicians can't really be desperate.
Well, you should grab a copy of the Daily Trust newspaper, to get details of that story. You'd also find on page 40 of the Daily Trust newspaper, PDP convention hangs as court rules on Seconda's suit today. Many are quite anticipating, to see the verdict that will come off this PDP convention situation.
All right. Well, I think very interesting stories. Let's take a look at the Punch newspaper today. And on the Punch, the first story at the very top there says Nigeria tops chart as 11 African countries block airlines $700 million revenue. You'd find that on page 25. And then 21 billion naira, 14-bed Aso Rock Clinic's construction begins November. You'd see that on page 8. And then, of course, government workers' future shaky as 20 states shun contributory pension scheme. You'd see that 5 states insist on other pension schemes, 7 still at bill stage. All right, so that's on page 2. Well, I don't know, but this is really heartbreaking. The lead story on the Punch newspaper says, Secondus suits ruling. Uncertainty reigns as 3,600 delegates arrive in Abuja for PDP convention. That's on page 2. With the riders, only PDP chairman has right to supervise convention. That's Oyetibo. PDP convention on track. APC's collapse imminent, says Fintiri. You'd find also below the pictorial representation there. By the way, the pictures there are showing you migrants in a caravan to the United States to seek asylum and refugee status en route to Mexico City in a villa there. Now the other stories there would show you Tambuwal, others visit Mimiko, ex-governor set to rejoin PDP. That's on page 14. Some are already saying that he has joined the PDP, already as outcome of that meeting, even though from the video I saw, he said he will be consulting. Facebook changes name to Meta, promotes apps, technologies under new firm. That's on page 25. You'd also find Lai Muhammad lied. He funded 2019 Kwara APC elections. That's according to the secretary.
That's real.
Interested? You pick up a copy of the Punch. You see that on page 14. But it's quite interesting that we are seeing the change of name of Facebook. Meta.
We were so used to Facebook. I was thinking of Meta. It sounds.
What's that?
It sounds.
Meta. It sounds awkward to me, really.
It does actually.
But we'll see other stories as well. NIMC suffers network delay amid race to meet SIM-NIN deadline. That's on page 19. And of course, you would find suspected cultist caught with pistol in Ogun school during exam. You would see FBN appoints ex-Fidelity Bank's boss, GMD AK, retires. That's on page 25 of the Punch newspaper this morning. These are some of the stories that made the headlines here.
Okay, let's take a look at some of the stories on the Nigerian Tribune this morning. 8 members remove Plateau House of Assembly Speaker. 14 others quash impeachment, suspend 6 principal officers. I used dry human skull as ritual for Yahoo Boy before killing my female friends to make more money. That's according to a murder suspect. If you want to get details of that story, grab a copy of the Nigerian Tribune. Anxiety in PDP as appeal court decides Secondus suit today. And a writer is saying convention will open floodgates for defections to PDP. That's according to Fintiri, to Adamawa State Governor. Osun PDP adopts Oyilola as candidate for position of Deputy National Chairman. Mimiko rejoins party after meeting with Makinde, Wike, Tambuwal. Ikpeazu. You find that story on page 2 and page 4 of the Nigerian Tribune. Why Benue keyed into federal government's National Livestock Transformation Plan. That's according to Otom. How Southwest Governor's investment in agric will bolster region's food sufficiency. That's according to the Dawn Commission, and you'll find details of that on page 10 of the Nigerian Tribune. And still on the Nigerian Tribune newspaper, you'd also see Facebook changes company name to Meta. And on page 9, stop treating Nigerians like criminals. Illegal immigrants, Shoyinka tells federal government. 2023, Khan warns against Christian-Muslim ticket. You'd find details of that on the Nigerian Tribune. These are some of the stories on the Tribune newspaper this morning.
All right. Well, interesting stories there that one will say. I mean, when we hear, Khan warning against Christian, Muslim
That's really
ticket. I mean, a lot of, experts and politicians or public commentators will say, well, politics, somehow in Nigeria is ethnicized, you find that certain sentiments are used, in most cases, to run politics in Nigeria. And so those are the things that I believe that as Nigerians we should guard against. Also, you would see other interesting stories. The whole Facebook thing, I'm just suspicious about the whole changing of the name, Meta. Where is this heading? Facebook has some kind of litigations in some countries. Is that the changing of that name, could there be an implication of that on some of these litigations? Just thinking aloud. I'm just thinking aloud, really. All right, let's take a look at other papers. The Nation newspaper. On the Nation newspaper, I beg your pardon, the lead story there talks about PDP governors, elders head for showdown over Oyinlola. You'd find also the riders, Mimiko's defection. Mimiko's defection unsettles Ondo chapter. You'd find also court to rule on secondary suit today. And these are some of the riders there. And then other stories. Deduction from state allocation on hold for now. Well, for details of that, you can grab a copy of the Nation newspaper. First Bank Holdings appoints Okonkwo as GMD. And then at the very top of the Nation, police query carry on panel's findings. No extradition request yet. You'd see also ICPC recovers 301 houses from 2 civil servants. Developers compromising. Beside that, another story says government winning war against Boko Haram and bandits. Shoyinka to government. Travel forms cumbersome. Well, these are some of the lead stories, but, each time I hear government is winning the war against bandits again, I hear other stories that are not really, corroborating with that. When you hear things like, okay, bandits are now taking tax in certain villages or communities, when you hear that they are now forcing people and taking their children, marrying them by force, when you hear those kind of stories, it contradicts, whether or not we are winning the war, on these, bandits and these insurgents. But let's just see how it all pans out. Well, we exhausted our papers yet?
Yes, because I think most of the papers are actually leading with
okay, we have
PDP convention.
We have the Guardian. Yes. We have the Guardian newspaper. And on the Guardian, you would find also non-teaching varsity workers threaten strike over alleged unfair pay sharing formula. You see also ICPC recovers 301 houses from 2 civil servants in Abuja. Military claims killing ISWAP leader. Bako 38 others. Drama as 8 lawmakers impeach Plateau speaker. And then you would find also the lead story. PDP's convention rocky as appeal court rules on secondaries today. What a day to rule on a matter. when tomorrow is the convention. So what if the whole court ruling turns out not in favor of the person in question? What happens? You would find also members fear another caretaker committee arrangement if ruling goes against party. Fintiri Obbit says convention will attract mass defection from APC. PDP governors storm Ondo, woo Mimiko back to party. Mimiko collapses ZLP into PDP in Ondo. You would also find the story saying to attend convention tomorrow. Ex-Transport Minister Bayo dumps APC for PDP in Kwara. The pictorial there showing you the preparations for the PDP convention at the Eagle Square in Abuja. Nigeria is disintegrating before our eyes, says Shoinka. You would find the writers there. He narrates tortuous ordeal with COVID-19 travel processes returning to the country. Task FG on efficient management of international travel portal. These are some of the stories. And then at the very bottom there, you would see we need 13 billion naira to fix failed portions of Sango Ota Road, says Abiodun. Well, these are some of the stories there that made the headlines on the Guardian newspaper. Very, very interesting story. But we'll be taking a look at, some more of these stories, like the whole saga, I'll say the drama about the impeachment of the Plateau State governor. But that will be after the short break. We'll take a look at the stories more in details. Please stay with us.
When a situation where you find that they look like the same,
Not necessarily tribal or regional.
because I have said that